that helped to shift, because I didn't necessarily have the power to shift up ideas, particularly as I wasn't psychologically trained. So we had lots of team meetings where graphs were presented, there was discussions. One of my trainees then did a kind of review of all the goals that had been set by young people together with their therapists over a certain amount of time, and did a thematic analysis of the goals. And what was interesting about that is you would think that certain groups of clinicians would set certain types of goals that might be more exploratory or reflective, and others would be more behavioural. That blew that myth out of the water, really, in that different clinicians were setting different types of goals, and they were worded by the young people. And so it kind of brought the team together rather than being in silos in the way people work. So we also had the service user research young people's views. And the other thing is what you do with all this information, because you've got loads and loads of information now that you're collecting, and it could just go off to commissioners, and that's it. But in our team, it's brought back into the team in like quarterly monitoring. So recently I just had one of my trainees do an outcome research looking at actually one of our measures in terms of whether there was statistically significant change, whether it tended from the clinical range into non-clinical range, clinical into non-clinical between therapies. So we can actually see how we're doing as a team. The CHI-ESK is always, do you know the CHI-ESK? It's it's an experience of service questionnaire, and it's asking about their experience of the service, not specifically of that session of therapy. And it asks, did you feel listened to? It asks whether your experience of whether you could get there at times that you wanted to get there, whether you were treated well by reception, that sort of thing. So that data for the whole service, including the sexual health side, is presented quarterly to the team with all the comments, because you get loads of comments on there about the service, and you can make changes from those comments. I also use those, and there's a poster up in the waiting room for young people that sees that their feedback is used in appraisals. So when I'm meeting with my staff, I will look at the CHI-ESKs from those staff at their appraisal and go through it with them. And often it's very positive, it's quite a nice thing to do. Sometimes if they've asked to change therapist, we talk about what's gone on there, but it's quite helpful to give feedback because it's directly from young people. So you can, as a service, just send it off to commissioners, this data, or send it off to a mental health data set, or you can use it to transform your service. So there are some hurdles though. So we are still on pen and paper. I don't know how that will work when we go paperless. And my experience of doing that at the TAVI is we started off pen and paper, and it was starting to implement feedback-informed practice. It moved to a paperless system, and it's really difficult because people haven't had the forms, they're not quite up on the iPads in a way that they're usable. There isn't immediate feedback in terms of getting the graphs back the next week. The systems are very clunky, and so people have got a bit fed up, understandably, because it's very difficult to use clinically, and then it's less meaningful. So that's a warning in terms of what systems need to be in place. Also, when the power isn't in the team to use the feedback measures. So I work in another team where I'm going to give you a communication with that other team. I'm trying to implement feedback measures there, but I'm not the team lead, and I don't really hold much power to do so, other than the way that it's worked is we were the second wave in the partnership with Camden at the Tavistock and Portman, and we're rolling out in the Camden teams. The rest of the Tavistock is now in wave 6, I think. So that's the rest of the non-Camden CAMS teams that TAVI has contracts with lots of other boroughs. And I'm in one of those teams. And I was in an away day, and I was asked to talk about, feedback measures, outcome measures as they're called there. And it was pushed further and further back into the away day to be the last bit of the away day. And then at the end was thought, oh God, that was a really bad way to end an away day kind of thing. So it's really interesting where it's positioned. It's seen as a real drag. And then I got this email that went round to the team from one of the, somebody who does have quite a lot of power on the team, family therapist, and she's, Emma, just used my first how is this meeting form, and about to use a how are things form. Thanks, I think you may have helped me turn a corner. Can't believe I'm saying this. And then the next person in the team sends an email, is this being framed? And the next person in the team sends an email. This is all in one day. Amazing, on the next form too, it's revelational. And then the team lead says, tell us more, what was so revelational? And then the person who's done the family therapy says, I'm embarrassed to say, as it seems so obvious now, getting a 14-year-old to do how are things questionnaire before we started a session just made it easier to have more open conversation. And I also thought I could do it again post-summer to see the difference. The how was the session one was also interesting, as the children said different things to the parents, which has given me something to think about. Anyway, yes, all good. And then the next response is from Gold Starter L, this is family therapist, who's from somebody in the team who's doing the management training, which is interesting. So how you transform teams is very different and bespoke, because there has to be a tipping point, in my experience, around transformation. And it can be quite difficult, and there's times when it gets stuck, and you have to sort of work out where the power is and who are your allies. But this has been where the fairy tale can get tripped up a bit, is data management systems. So in some ways, what you need to be able to do, and I think all services have to be uploading their data onto the mental health data set. Is that right? Are you aware of that? Okay. Now, for non-statutory services, this can be very tricky because you have to get into the N3 pathway, which involves a whole load of information governance, which is very expensive. And so for any of the voluntary sector services that may be here today, my suggestion is you hook up with your NHS service to try to get in that way. Our commissioners have supported us to use a data system. We're using Commit at the moment. That may change because these data systems are expensive. So unless you're a large organisation, this can be very costly, and this is where you need to be in partnership. So at the moment, we are able to upload our data from Commit. It gets onto a file that can be uploaded to the mental health data set via my colleagues at the Tavistock and Portland, and I go over there with a memory stick. So in saying that, I still have problems uploading the data. It's tricky. So this is where things can fall down. And we're constantly exploring what we should do next, because if we go paperless, we want to be able to, or we will have to, we want to be able to have a system that will upload our data. I'm sorry if this is very boring for the non-data people out there. I'm not a data geek. I've had to learn all about it, and it's very tricky. So I know I don't have much time, so I just thought I'd talk about the thing that I've found most interesting in service transformation, which has been our service user involvement. And this is where I think, when I talk about the ethos of CYP-IAPT, this is where it really fitted with our service. So the evidence-based stuff does fit. We're providing a range of therapies for a range of different young people. But for us, it's a young person's service, always has been. It's known as the Brandon. It's got over 50% self-referrals. Young people come in for sexual health, just drop in or walk in to refer themselves, and come to the psychotherapy service. And that's quite unusual. It does mean you're managing high risk. We've got no psychiatry in the service. But it makes it a very young, people-friendly organisation. It's a house, so it doesn't have a clinical feel to it. And so when the push to increase our service user involvement came through the CYP-IAPT, it's been delightful, I think. But it's about doing it at an organisational level, so it's not just lip service. So I appointed my referrals coordinator to step up to be lead for service user involvement, and supported that role with more time and training and arrays. And we've created slots in meetings all the way up, from the management meetings, the team meetings, for service user feedback. We've had young people set up various projects, and it started off with a service user fete, and then we've got names of people who might want to be involved, become youth ambassadors. They're on all our interview panels. We interviewed a few months ago for the new CEO, and we had a panel just of service users. And what they developed was their sense of the ethos of the service, what this person might need to be like, and from that they developed a whole range of questions. And it was really interesting how they did this to come up with a really interesting values-based interview for a CEO. It was very impressive. but more importantly is closing the feedback loop. So when you get stuff from service users, then what do you do with it? So, you know, in terms of actually transforming a service. So there were some things that were quite easy, well, not that easy, but they wanted the service to be open later, they wanted it to be open on Saturdays. We now have all those things in place. They wanted various things to change in rooms, which was very basic. They've also asked for more projects, so that when people use the service, they come through, and often their therapy comes to an end. We usually offer them up to a year. And it's not clear then where they might go. They may not go into adult services, or they may. But some of the young people have ended up being youth ambassadors, and they maintain a relationship with the service and help other young people. So recently we've had a problem with our waiting list, and as most services do, and people are assessed and then they sit on a waiting list for a bit, waiting to be seen. And so we got some young people together to think, to talk to young people who were on this therapy waiting list about their experiences of therapy and how they might manage themselves while they're waiting. And then, which was a really interesting exercise. It was facilitated by a trainee clinical psychologist and a service user lead, but the young people running this group. And what came out of it was they videoed it, and then the conversations that came out of that were then turned into an animation that they were involved with creating with a professional animator with the voices. And that will be on our website soon. But there's an animation that talks about what it was like to go to a first therapy appointment, why they didn't turn up to the first one, how difficult it was to get in the door, what the experience was like, one person having CBT, one person having psychodynamic psychotherapy, how they set their goals, what it was like to work through them. And so it's young people's experiences of therapy that they've then created for us. So there's lots of quite exciting stuff that they've done to help the service and to help it develop. Most recently, they asked for more creative interventions, and they're setting up a photo voice intervention, which we've just bid in for a large amount of funding. Initial funding has come from IAPT to set up the initial focus groups, so that it's sort of allowed the service, and that will be an intervention that's preventative, because it won't be just for young people who use the service, but young people in Camden, around mental health and how they tell their stories. So that's been one of the most interesting bits. So I'm just going to talk a minute really about implementation and a bit of a warning here. But it's about a culture change. And I don't know, it's interesting because we look at evidence-based practice for therapy, but if you look at the evidence for implementation, you would expect it to take time. And the fairy tale could take several years. So they would expect the change to be implemented and embedded over 5 years, not within a year. That would be the beginning of it. It's about sustaining things. And you need a strategy and a project plan that's in line with the ethos of your service. You need support from senior management, and you need to bring along your supporting allies and find out who they are, with commissioners, with managers, with senior management, with the young people. And you need to find ways to sustain new practice once it's in place, because there's many challenges along the way. Did I want to say anything more?
Before we all applaud Emma for a really fantastic presentation, I have a couple of slides on the kind of like practical things you might do in order to, first of all, join the Learning Collaborative and then to begin to implement CYP-IAPT. But before I do this, I would like a sense of who in the room doesn't think or knows that they are not part of CYP-IAPT already. Does that mean that everyone in the room is already
I think they're lying, Alex.
part of CYP-IAPT? Who is lying?
I lie all the time.
So, should I do the slides about how to join the Learning Collaborative?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. What it stands for? Oh, right. Yes. Okay, it's the Children and Young People's improving access to psychological therapies program. Yeah, but you I think you do know what it is now.
Alex?
Yes.
Can Warren just use his gorilla explanation?
Is it possible to leave the gorillas till this afternoon when everybody's sleeping? Is that okay?
Well, that's fine. I just think it just explains what CYPAT. For some of we were all at very different levels.
I mean, I think as someone else has said, they aren't quite sure when we have this analogy or a metaphor. It sounds really great. Are you happy to that?
No. I was going to include it this afternoon. Essentially, we had a discussion in the... Sorry, can you hear me at the back? We had a discussion in the programme board about what is CYPI Act, what is our ideas for delivering well. And we got into this ape analogy. And the idea is that CYPI Act is a bit like having 5 apes that you've got to nurture and tame. And in the meeting, we started thinking about gorillas. Now, since that meeting, I just coincidentally happened to take my kids to Portland Conservation Park, and I spent quite a lot of time looking at the apes there. And when I looked at the gorillas, they seemed quite brutish in their movements, and their relationships weren't very cooperative and organised by dominance. And I thought that doesn't really fit with CYPI Act. So I went to see the gibbons, and they were much more relevant for CYPI because their movements were quite subtle. They seemed to work kind of collaboratively, and they did sort of unexpected things at the time. So there's 5 gibbons involved in CYPI Act, and they've got the useful acronym APE. And now I'm just hoping, as I say that, I'm going to remember them all. So there's accountability, awareness, accessibility, participation, and evidence-based practice. So they're the 5 priorities that we're all kind of working towards. How was that?
So very, very briefly, if you are an organisation, a service that is interested in joining the Learning Collaborative, Emma was right. These days we don't ask for a really long and quite complicated application to be completed, and you don't need to come and sit in front of a panel of parents and young people and then a panel of professionals in order to get in. Those are the good bad old days. You had the luxury experience of it. So all we would like from organisations now is a bit of a conversation to kind of set things off, so that we have a bit of an understanding of what's going on, and so do you. And then 2 kind of bits of paperwork. The first is a sort of monitoring form, which includes some of the delivering well standards, which Warren mentioned earlier. And then some KPIs for the programme. So it's a kind of self-assessment. It helps you assess where your organisation is, because actually we know CYPI Act, the principles of CYPI Act are not really a new thing. You're probably already doing a lot of these things, but there might be a few places in which you're weaker than others, and we would like to be able to help you improve things there. So that baseline monitoring form just helps you get a sense of things and us get a sense of things. And then you would complete that every quarter, which is much easier than the first time you complete it. And we also share this data with NHS England, so it's a bit of a way for them to have a sense of the effectiveness of the programme. So there's that baseline monitoring form. And then the other thing is, there's a document that sets out some of the benefits of joining the programme, and then also some of the commitments that your organisation will be making in terms of improving itself. So it's nothing too outlandish. You've kind of heard it all today, but we just need this document signed off by your chief exec or your director, and then countersigned by your CCG. So it's about getting that sign up from the kind of strategic levels and the support and commitment to actually making this transformation happen. This slide, yes, Marguerite.
Just to interrupt, Alex, we have a lot of local authority and third sector providers here who know nothing about what collaborative is. Do you just want to say what you are as well? The actual collaborative itself, so as a body.
Okay, well, Emma mentioned it a bit earlier. So the Learning Collaborative is a collection of partnerships of organisations that all decided to transform themselves in line with everything that Emma's just talked about. And then that is, so typically there's a kind of NHS organisation at the core of each of those partnerships, and then working collaboratively with the voluntary sector and local authorities and private sector organisations as well if they want to get involved. So at the moment, our Learning Collaborative, which spans London and the South East, is made up of 40 of those partnerships. And then those partnerships work very closely together with a number of training institutions. So at the moment that's King's and UCL and the Tavistock and the Anna Freud Centre in London, and together they offer training packages to all of those partnerships involved in the overall Learning Collaborative. So it's learning from a sense that there are all of these trainings and various different evidence-based interventions and supervision and service leadership, which we'll talk about in a bit, but it's also in terms of the shared learning that Emma was talking about. So the opportunity to speak to organisations who have already been doing this for a while, to find out how to avoid the kind of pitfalls that they encountered, and to have an opportunity to kind of talk about the obstacles that you're encountering, and to have kind of frank, open discussions about how to kind of traverse this you know, sometimes quite kind of difficult improvement work. That is the Learning Collaborative. Across the country, there are another 5 of these. So by the end of 2018, the entire country will be involved in this transformative programme. Does anyone have a question about what the Learning Collaborative is? Does that kind of capture it for you?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
If we joined the Learning Collaborative, we could benefit from the training that you offer.
Yes. Yes, we will answer that question in a lot more detail in the next presentation. Okay, so this slide, I have captured some of the commitments that your CEO and your commissioner would be signing up to. So that's under the kind of elements column, and then a few steps to actually kind of implementing those things, which again, I'm really kind of echoing a lot of the things that Emma has already talked about.